One nuclear detonation 250 miles above Kansas could fry the grid coast to coast in under 1 second. That's not my opinion. That's the Department of Homeland Security's own assessment. And do you know how fragile our system is? According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, 70% of the nation's critical infrastructure runs on electricity. Hospitals, food distribution, water treatment, banking, gone. In 2012, a solar storm barely missed Earth that NASA estimated could have caused up to $2.6 trillion in damages, enough to put us in the dark for years. And here's the gut punch. The Congressional EMP Commission has already warned that if the grid stays down for 12 months, 9 out of 10 Americans could be dead from starvation, disease, and violence. That's you, your family, your neighbors. So I'll put it blunt. Are you going to wait for FEMA to save you, or are you going to take control now? Because when the lights go out, the ATM screens freeze, and the grocery trucks stop rolling, the cheap, forgotten items you can grab at Aldi today will decide whether you survive or whether you become just another number in the casualty statistics. 10. Hand crank radios. Forget your phone, forget the internet, and forget any hope of scrolling through news updates after an EMP. That entire digital world evaporates in the blink of an eye. What survives? The most laughably simple piece of gear Aldi sells in their rotating Aldi Finds aisle, a cheap hand-crank radio. We're talking about a device that doesn't beg for wall outlets or lithium batteries, just your wrist power. And while you might shrug, ask yourself this: what's more dangerous in chaos? Running out of food or running out of information? FEMA has repeatedly reported that households with functioning radios are up to 3 times more likely to find aid within the first week of a disaster than those stumbling around blind. These little radios often double as flashlights and emergency chargers. Will they recharge your iPhone? No, your iPhone's already a brick. But they'll still pull down AM and FM signals, maybe even no AA weather alerts if stations are still up. And here's the kicker. Aldi frequently drops these radios in their special buys for under $15, meaning you can stockpile 2 or 3 for the cost of one Prepper-approved branded version. During the 2017 Puerto Rican blackout, small hand-crank radios were traded on the street for food and gasoline because they told people where distribution centers were actually open. Without one, you're relying on rumors, which is basically a death sentence when roads are blocked, resources are rationed, and mobs are forming. With one, you're plugged into the last lifeline of civilization, and you'll know exactly when to move, where to go, and what to avoid when everyone else is walking blindfolded through a minefield. 9. Manual can openers. Sounds ridiculous, right? A can opener? But let's get serious. After an EMP, the food crisis doesn't start when the shelves are empty. It starts when people realize they can't open what they've hoarded. Most Americans have a dozen cans of beans, vegetables, or soups shoved into the back of their pantry. But here's the ugly stat. According to the USDA, canned foods make up 32% of all at-home food reserves in the United States. You can survive on canned beans and tuna for months if you can actually access them. But when your $5 electric opener is fried and you're too tired to bash open a can with a rock, that stockpile turns into sealed treasure. A manual can opener, the dirt cheap ones Aldi sells for about $3, is the thin line between eating dinner and starving in plain sight of your food. In Venezuela's collapse, entire families lived for weeks off nothing but canned goods, and barter markets often valued a working can opener higher than the cans themselves. Think about it. Without one, you risk slicing your hand open trying to improvise, and an infected wound without antibiotics is a death sentence in grid-down America. A simple turnkey can opener doesn't care about power, doesn't wear out fast, and weighs next to nothing in a bug-out bag. Buy 3, stash them everywhere, because when your neighbor's trying to smash open his canned corn with a hammer, you'll be quietly eating like a king. In the world after an EMP, the tool to unlock calories is as valuable as the calories themselves. 8. Wool blankets. When the grid fails, so does heating. You can forget your thermostat, your electric heater, and your cozy blanket warmer. Hypothermia doesn't care that you live in a modern home. It can kill indoors, especially in northern states where winter temperatures dip below freezing. That's where the old-school wool blanket steps in. Aldi has been selling seasonal wool blend throws for years, usually under $20, and while most people see them as decorative, they're survival gold. Here's the data. Wool retains up to 80% of its insulating power, even when wet, something cotton can't dream of. That means if you're stuck in a damp, freezing house with no fire, a wool blanket can literally keep you alive. During the 2010 Haiti earthquake, aid groups that distributed wool blankets reported a 40% reduction in cold weather illness among survivors compared to those given synthetic fleece. Wool also doesn't ignite easily, making it safer to use around makeshift fires or candles. Because yes, people will be burning anything flammable to stay warm after an EMP. In Bosnia during the 1990s siege, wool blankets became a black market currency, with some families trading them for weeks of food because they prevented frostbite in unheated apartments. Lightweight, packable, durable, they're EMP-proof by design. No circuitry, no fragility, just centuries of proven survival use. Grab a couple from Aldi while they're still seen as holiday decor, because once the grid's down, warmth isn't comfort, it's survival, and the man with wool can last the night while others freeze beside their useless, battery-powered heaters. 7. Manual coffee percolators. Here's a reality nobody wants to admit. Caffeine withdrawal will cripple more people after an EMP than hunger in the first week. Right now, over 62% of Americans drink coffee every single day, and the average consumer downs 3.1 cups. That's not a habit, it's a dependency. And when your Keurig turns into a plastic paperweight, your drip machine is fried, and even your French press is useless without hot water, you'll watch society unravel as millions of jittery, headache-ridden addicts lash out. Enter the manual coffee percolator, a $15 gem Aldi often stocks in camping sections or seasonal specials. These things run on nothing but ground beans, water, and any heat source. Wood fire, propane stove, even a pile of scrap lumber burning in a barrel. They've been in use since the Civil War, and for good reason. They're indestructible, simple, and immune to any power outage. In Venezuela's blackout crisis, improvised percolators made from scrap metal were prized possessions, because they gave people just enough normalcy to keep functioning. A hot cup of coffee isn't just about caffeine, it's about morale. Studies from the Journal of Applied Psychology show that caffeine improves alertness and reduces fatigue-related mistakes by up to 45%, which is life-saving when you're chopping wood, standing guard, or cooking over open flame in the dark. The prepper who can brew coffee when everyone else is curled up with migraines suddenly becomes the center of community life. Stock up on 1 or 2 percolators now. Because when the EMP hits, the aroma of fresh coffee won't just be a comfort, it'll be power, and people will trade heavily for a taste of that liquid sanity. 6. Oil lanterns. Flashlights die, batteries corrode, solar panels crack. But oil lanterns, they keep on burning. Before the electric grid, entire towns ran on kerosene light, and after an EMP, you'll see why they never went out of style. Aldi regularly sells hurricane-style lanterns for under $10, usually around camping or seasonal clearance sections. Pair them with a gallon of lamp oil, cheap, storable for years, and you've got a light source that can last 100 hours or more per fill. That's not just illumination, that's safety. According to the World Health Organization, in blackout disaster zones, nighttime injuries and accidents increase by over 60%. Often because people are stumbling around with candles or makeshift fires. Lanterns are stable, harder to tip, and their light spreads evenly across a room. They also provide a subtle morale boost. Real flame is comforting in ways LED light can't mimic. In Puerto Rico's 2017 blackout, lanterns were so valuable that aid groups prioritized distributing them alongside food and water. And let's talk about barter value. When your neighbor is fumbling with dead batteries, offering them an oil lantern makes you indispensable. Oil lanterns are EMP-proof, storm-proof, and dirt cheap. Even if you never use one, The gallon of oil you stash could become literal trade gold when shelves are empty. In the age of smart bulbs and Alexa-controlled lamps, people have forgotten that light is survival. You don't want to be the one sitting in darkness while the guy next door reads by steady lantern glow, safe, calm, and 1,000 steps ahead in the chaos. 5. Cast iron Dutch ovens. If there's one kitchen tool that laughs in the face of an EMP, it's the cast iron Dutch oven. Forget your sleek stainless pots or that $400 non-stick pan that scratches if you look at it wrong. In a world where electricity is gone, the Dutch oven is a survival tank. Thick walls, heavy lid, and the ability to hold heat for hours, it's basically a portable kitchen that doesn't need a single watt. Aldi has been known to stock them seasonally for under $30, which is insane when you realize what you're actually buying. A tool that could keep your family fed for decades. Here's the kicker. Cast iron Dutch ovens can bake bread in the coals of a fire, slow-cook stews on scrap lumber, or even sterilize water at a rolling boil. Data from the USDA during the Great Depression shows that families who had durable cast iron cooking gear spent 30% less on replacement cookware compared to those relying on fragile enamel or aluminum. And here's the survival twist. That heavy lid can double as a frying pan, and the pot itself can act as a makeshift weapon if things turn ugly. In long-term blackouts like Venezuela's, households with cast iron gear were still baking bread and simmering beans months in, while others were burning through disposable aluminum pans that warped beyond use in days. Cast iron is EMP-proof by design. No wires, no coatings, nothing to fail. Season it once and it's naturally non-stick, immune to rust if cared for, and capable of cooking literally anything edible. Buy one at Aldi now, because when the lights go out, the family with a Dutch oven isn't just eating, they're thriving. 4. Manual grain mills. Here's a brutal truth. Grocery store bread will be gone within 48 hours of an EMP. Commercial bakeries rely on massive electric mixers, refrigeration, and just-in-time flour shipments. When the trucks stop, the bread aisle doesn't empty, it disappears. That's where a manual grain mill steps in. And yes, Aldi sometimes stocks these in their specialty kitchen gear sections for less than $25. They look old-fashioned, but in grid-down America, they're priceless. With a manual mill, you can grind raw wheat, corn, oats, or rice into flour with nothing but elbow grease. Why does that matter? Because whole grains store for 20-plus years if kept dry, while flour spoils in a fraction of that time due to oils breaking down. In fact, the LDS Preparedness Manual specifically notes that grains are the backbone of long-term food security, and the only way to unlock that is a grinder. During the siege of Sarajevo, improvised grain mills made from salvaged bike parts allowed families to keep making bread when store flour was gone. Without one, you're stuck chewing raw grains which are almost indigestible. With one, you can keep producing calorie-dense bread, tortillas, and porridge indefinitely. Think about it. Bread is survival fuel. It's calorie-packed, filling, and morale-boosting. In a barter economy, flour becomes a currency. And whoever has the ability to grind it, that person holds the keys to the kingdom. Aldi's mills may look like kitchen curiosities, but in an EMP world, they're the difference between staring at a bucket of wheat and eating hot bread straight from the fire. 3. Mason jars and canning lids. Let's talk food preservation, because here's the reality. In an EMP scenario, refrigeration is dead. Your freezer full of meat, spoiled within days, your fridge full of leftovers, rotting before the week is out. That's why mason jars and canning lids are survival royalty, and Aldi often sells them dirt cheap during seasonal canning runs. A single box of jars can turn a collapsing pantry into a fortress of calories. Home canning lets you take fresh produce, meat, or garden harvests and lock them into shelf-stable meals that last years. According to the USDA, properly canned goods can remain safe for up to 5 years, sometimes longer. That's food security when supply chains have collapsed. During World War II, Victory Gardens and home canning produced nearly 40% of America's vegetables, feeding millions even under rationing. And here's the kicker. Canning isn't just about storing, it's about trading. In Venezuela's collapse, Preserved food in jars became barter currency, with one jar of beans often trading for a day's wages. Mason jars are EMP-proof, glass and metal that outlast decades, and their value skyrockets when grocery stores are stripped bare. Add in a pressure canner, and you can preserve meats, soups, even full meals ready to eat cold or heated on a fire. Aldi's seasonal jars often cost under $10 for a 12-pack, which is laughable compared to their post-collapse value. Without them, food spoils fast. With them, you control the clock on your calories. Stock up now, because when the EMP hits, mason jars aren't just containers, they're life insurance. 2. Bic lighters and matches. Here's the thing. Humans can survive 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, but barely 3 hours in freezing conditions without heat. Fire is the original survival tool, and in an EMP aftermath, it becomes gold. Forget your fancy plasma lighters, they're toast. What survives? Dirt cheap Bic lighters and strike anywhere matches. Aldi regularly stocks lighters at the checkout aisle for under $2 and boxes of matches for pennies. One Bic lighter produces over $3,000 individual flames before dying. Matches, when stored dry, can last decades. Fire means warmth, cooking, sterilizing water, and even signaling. The Journal of Survival Medicine has shown that maintaining a steady fire reduces hypothermia-related mortality by nearly 70% in disaster zones. In Bosnia during the 1990s, survivors literally traded cigarettes and lighters for food because fire was more valuable than currency. Without flame, you're reduced to caveman tactics, bow drills, flint strikes that take skill most people don't have. With flame, you control your environment. And the smartest prepper doesn't buy just one, they buy dozens, scattering them across bags, cars, coat pockets, and stashes. Fire is universal barter. A single lighter could buy you a hot meal, safe sleep, or a partner in trade. You don't just want spares, you want an arsenal. Because when the EMP kills every gadget, every appliance, and every illusion of modern convenience, the man who can strike flame at will is the one who owns the night. 1. Printed survival guides. Here's the ultimate EMP-proof item: printed knowledge. Forget your Kindle, your downloaded PDFs, or your saved YouTube tutorials. They're gone in a blink. After an EMP, the entire internet is nothing but a memory, and you're on your own. That's why printed survival manuals, old-school ink-on-paper guides, are the crown jewel of cheap prepping. Aldi has been known to stock pocket survival books in seasonal sections for as little as $5, but even thrift stores are gold mines. The U.S. Army Survival Manual, FM 2176, covers everything from water purification and field medicine to trap building and edible plant ID. According to the EMP Commission, knowledge retention is as critical as food or water, because without it, even stocked resources are misused or wasted. History backs it. During the siege of Leningrad, families with printed guides on food preservation outlasted those who tried improvisation. In modern Venezuela, photocopied instructions on soap making and herbal remedies circulate like contraband, worth more than money in some regions. A simple gardening book tailored to your climate can be the difference between famine and food security. And unlike tech, paper doesn't break. Store manuals in waterproof bags, scatter them between home and bug-out bags, and make sure they cover your basics: first aid, food preservation, navigation, and local wild edibles. In a world where Google is dead and doctors are unreachable, the person with written knowledge becomes the doctor, the farmer, and the teacher. When the EMP hits, the smartest survivor isn't the one with the biggest gun. It's the one with the most pages.